guys, welcome to my channel, Medical Assistant with Miss K. If this is your first time visiting, welcome. My name is Kendra, aka Miss K. I'm a medical assistant instructor, and I am doing a financial series. This is the fourth video in that series, and I'm going to be talking today about paying off debts. Now, in the first video, I talked about just different ways to use your tax refund or any other lump sum of money that you may come into or that you may save. In the second video, I talked about creating a budget. In the third video, I talked about saving. And in this video, I'm talking about paying off debts. Now, let me just say this. There are some steps to this, okay? So if you haven't already done a budget, right, and you know how much money you have left over every month to save or even pay off debt, you want to start there by doing your budget. Make sure you have enough money actually left over from paying off your expenses to actually pay off your debts. Okay, now paying off your debts does go with paying off your expenses, so those can go hand in hand, but I just recommend going in that order with doing your budget, saving an emergency fund. That's something that's non-negotiable. You definitely want to have that emergency fund. Now you may be saying, well, why can't I pay off debts and then do an emergency fund? The thing about it is, as I mentioned when I talked about emergency funds in that last video, let's say you're in the process of paying off debts and then your car breaks down, right? Your car breaks down, or you have something breaks down in your home and you got to get that fixed, right? It's not under warranty or whatever. You got to get it fixed. Guess what? You have to go into your bill money. You have to go into, money that you may have been setting aside for something else. But when you have an emergency fund set aside, it's strictly for those purposes. So have your emergency fund. And now when you have that, as I mentioned in that video, it could be $1,000, $500, whatever you need. Ideally, you want to have at least 3 to 6 months. Okay. And then one day you'll even have a year saved up once you're really financially stable. And that's a whole other thing we'll talk about later. But at least starting out with something, okay? Now, let's talk about paying off debts, okay? Now, when I'm saying paying off debts, I'm not referring to your, like your cell phone bill. I'm not referring to your monthly expenses like your car insurance and things like that. I'm referring to credit cards, student loans, personal loans, payday loans, right? These are debts that are affecting your credit, okay? Now, I'm going to do another video on credit. Credit takes longer because there's so many different layers to credit, because I'm going to talk about credit and I'm going to talk about credit cards and the pros and cons of using credit cards, as well as how to use them correctly, okay? But anyway, let's get back to paying off debts. So that's what I'm talking about, your credit accounts, okay? Now, the very first thing you want to do, list all your debts. So just write them all down. Maybe start from smallest to biggest. Write all of your debts down, your credit cards, your personal loans, student loans, whatever you have. Write all of your debt down. Now, if you have student loans and it's in deferment, you're still in school, or I believe they give you a certain amount of time once you graduate that to where you don't have to pay them right away. If you're in deferment, then that's fine. If you're paying on them, you definitely want to develop a system to pay those off, because I'll tell you guys, when I first started getting student loans at 19, I didn't realize how interest will build up. So I do recommend you guys have a plan on how to pay those student loans back, because I was young. I didn't realize that interest would accumulate and I would end up owing more than what I borrowed. Now, when you list those debts from smallest to biggest, there's a few different ways you can tackle this, okay? One of the easiest ways is paying off the smallest first, okay? So let's say you list off your smallest debts and you realize, oh, this one right here is $150. I can easily pay that. When you pay the smallest first, oh my goodness, it just feels like it just takes such a weight off your shoulder. You feel accomplished and it motivates you to do more. You're like, okay, I paid $150 off that. Okay, now what's next? I'll say the next one is $500. Now you may not be able to pay all that off, but now you can say, okay, let me pay off a chunk of this, right? And then now you work towards that. So if you can go from smallest to biggest, that's one of the easiest ways. Now, one of the most popular ways, it's kind of like that. You're paying the smallest to biggest, but it's a little bit more to it. It's called the snowball method, okay? Or the snowball effect, okay? So with that way, when you're paying your debts off, whatever payment you were making towards that first debt, you're going to make it to the next one. So that probably was confusing. Let me give you guys an example. So let's just say you have a $150 debt, you have 500 and you have 1,000, right? So let's just say on that $150 debt, you were paying maybe $20 a month, right? So you pay that $150 off. Now that $20 a month that you were paying on that $150 debt, because that $150 debt is now gone, now that $20, you can start paying towards that $500 debt that you have, right? You see what I'm saying? So as I said, you're going from smallest to big. Well, let me go from here, smallest to biggest. So now the $150, we got rid of that. The $20 that you were paying on that, now it can go towards the $500. So now you're paying the payment for the $500 debt. Let's say your payment for the $500 debt is like $50 every month. So now instead of just paying $50 every month, now you're paying $70 because that $20 that you were paying from the $150, now you're adding to that. So does that make sense? And then when you pay off the $500, that $70 that you were paying to pay that off, now that $70 can go towards the $1,000, right? And so let's say the $1,000, the amount you were paying every month for that was $100, right? Now you got $170 that you can now put towards that $1,000, and it's just gonna knock it off so much quicker. So let me know if that makes sense or if that was confusing. If it was confusing, I'll just have to come back and do another video and kind of explain it more. But hopefully that made sense, because I know when I first learned it, I was like, what? I don't get it. But I eventually got it. But I'm telling you guys, it works, okay? So smallest to biggest is like one of the best ways. And I'll tell you guys this too. As you are paying off these debts, your best friend is going to be automation. I think I mentioned that in the saving video. But you want to automate. And what I mean by that is that you have a certain part of your pay going toward that debt. Let me share something with you guys. So my first car, it wasn't my first car, but it was the first car I financed. My first car I bought straight up. It was like a cheap car, years ago. But my second car, which was the first time I ever had a car note, the car note was like $230, right, a month. But it was financed through my credit union. So my credit union, they allowed me to get the payment taken out of my check. So it was about $230 a month. And every time I got paid, $115 from my check went to my car note. I was never late on that car note. And let me tell you guys this, I was so irresponsible. If I had not automated, I would have definitely been late on my car note. And me being on time with that car note, it helped me to have great credit, which I told you I want to talk to you about that later. But when you can pay your debts on time, it will help your credit so much, because late payments, when it comes to those debt payments, your credit cards, loans, those things impact your credit tremendously. And that's why I want to do a whole separate video on that. But automation is going to be your friend. So again, you want to list your debts from smallest to biggest. One of the ways you can do it is just simply paying off, the smallest one as a whole, just paying it straight off. If you are paying monthly payments, once you pay that smallest off, you're going to roll that payment that you were making on it to the next one. That next debt up, $500, whatever you were paying on that, you're going to roll that up, pay that one off, whatever you were paying on that. So it's a snowball effect. So I hope that makes sense. And also you want to automate. I recommend online banks, guys. I recommend multiple bank accounts. It's going to be a big difference, because when you have a bill pay account, you don't ever have to worry about it intermingling with your everyday money. You can even have a spending account. So if you want to be able to say, okay, I get paid $1,000 on this paycheck this week, and I want to be able to I want to go out and spend $200. That's going to go in your spend account, and the rest of it is going to go in your bills account. So you're never mixing the two. That's going to be so important, guys. Now, another method that I personally don't use, but it is definitely something to consider, is, when you list your debts, instead of listing them from smallest to biggest, you can list them by which one has the highest interest rates, okay? Because even though one debt may be smaller than the other, if the interest rate is higher, you're essentially paying more on that debt. So that's one, they call that the avalanche method. So that's I gotta make sure I mention that. I personally don't use it, but I understand why people do, because that high interest rate, you will end up paying more on that than you do on everything else. So if you want to list it by the interest rate versus the amount, you can do that, and then you can pay off those high interest rate debts first, and then work your way to the other debts. Work your way to paying off the other debts with lower interest rates. So hopefully this was helpful. Let me know how you guys are doing down below in the comments. If you're in the process of paying off debts, let me know as well. Let me know your process too. I'm curious to know what process you're using. If you're using the snowball method or the avalanche method or some other method, let me know, guys. There's going to be a few more videos in the series. We're going to talk about credit cards, and we're going to talk about investing. Let me know if you guys are enjoying this series. If you want to join my email list, you can join it down below. All of the resources that I mentioned, you can find those down below as well. Also, if you want to download my free printable budget worksheet, you can do that down below as well. Thank you guys for visiting my channel. Be blessed.